Written by Murphy here. I wanted to talk about what I'm talking about when I'm talking about books. This is video. Video is becoming one of the ways that I can communicate. I prefer to communicate through writing. Many people prefer to receive their communications through video. So, okay, and this is something that I can do. My life has led me to being able to do this. A lot of people are still locked down at home. Next week, tomorrow, my daughter's going to be starting a little bit back in school, right? And this lockdown has lasted more than a year. Thing about the lockdown is when it first happened, I had a lot of flashbacks to when I was a teenager. I grew up in Alaska, not remote, can't drive anywhere, only can get out through sled dog and plains, Alaska. There are areas of Alaska that are like that. That's not where I was. I was near a city. I was in a suburb of Anchorage, which is the biggest city. But it was pretty remote. And in addition to being remote, I was in a religious subset. And for high school, starting in 8th grade, which just rolled into high school. So I spent 4 years. There's an airplane going by. I spent 4 years in homeschool. So I was on the outskirts of a suburb of a big town, which is to say nowhere near the big town. I could not have gotten to that big town. There were no buses, and certainly I wasn't going to drive anywhere. So I was locked down, and I was not in connection with the world. This was a religious subculture. We did not have a TV. I was not allowed to listen to top 40 radio. Movies were very, very limited, and that was it. I did not have access to the broader world. I was not allowed to know neighbors, and I was only allowed to know people that were in my own church, which was really small. So my world was really, really, really small. So when our world went really small through the lockdown, I was remembering that time and remembering how much I didn't like it. But one thing about that time is I locked into the library. I had access to the library. The internet had not been invented yet, and I couldn't get on it until I got to junior college. But books were my key to the world. Books are my jam. Some people, music as well, but I didn't have access to music. But some people really like art. So art speaks to them, and they can create art. And some people are really good with tools, like they can make stuff, like they could build a house or something. But books, reading is something that I do. It's something I am skilled at and something I have an affinity for. Words make sense to me. So I read everything I could find at the library. Given that my upbringing was so limited, it was limited, and in addition to being restricted, it was restricted by boundaries of fear. We were told out there is bad things, it's hellish influences. So I was sort of careful, there's probably stuff that's gonna hurt me and cause me to sin and screw up my life if I were to encounter it. So there were these bounds of stories of fear, kind of similar to the pandemic. Out there, it'll kill you. So it wasn't just killing me as a teenager, it was killing the possibility of eternal damnation. So that's extra juicy. Here's the thing. I did not have, because I was schooled at home, such as it was, I did not have anyone influencing my choices at the library. I didn't have anyone saying, here are some good things to read. Here's a way to encounter books. I did not have that. I had only what I could discover. So I walked down to the children's section and went to the shelf that said young adult. And I read everything in that. And sometimes there would be new things in the young adult section. And I would read the new things. And inside those books, the people in the books would be reading other books. I read not just Little Women. I read everything by Louisa May Alcott. Everything. And one of the deeper cuts of her books, the girl, I believe it was Rose in Bloom. It was her series. I don't know if it was the first one, but she mentions reading Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I found out later as an adult. At the time, I didn't know to find out about authors. I'm just like, this is a book. I'm going to live in this world of this book. And oh boy, I needed to live in a world of something because my world was not pleasant. I did not like my world. So I needed to go live in the world and inhabit in the world of that book. So now I know that Louisa May Alcott was the daughter of a prominent transcendentalist, Bronson Alcott. And so she was very influenced by the transcendentalist writers. But I saw that she was reading Emerson. So I went and found Emerson. And I picked up Emerson. And I did not know what to do with the essays that Ralph Waldo Emerson had written. I looked at them, and they were not a story. Like Little Women was a story. They were very hard to follow. And I assumed at that time what that meant is I was a child and this was an adult book and adults were a lot smarter, and this is the sort of thing adults read the way I would read Little Women, that they would pick it up, they would read it and say, oh yes, this is enlightening, and put it down and go on and read the next thing the way I read books. So I was intimidated by the adult section after that. I'm like, oh, clearly I'm not ready for the adult section. However, I did find a book mentioned in Little Women, Ivanhoe. I found that one, and that one was far more by Sir Walter Scott. That one was longer and very dramatic, but I did read that one because she was reading it and I needed suggestions of what to read. So I found Ivanhoe and read that, and it was more boring than the books that Louisa May Alcott had written. Anyway, this is how I encountered books. Basically following my nose, as it were. We did not have search engines. I just had, what can I glean? This was pretty much the only thing in my world that was putting input into my life. So I'm like, fine, I will go read. I was always reading. Being a kid, I wasn't as responsible as an adult, and I think my mom had a limit. She said you can only check out 8 books at a time, because she was trying to limit the number of fees we would get from being late, like misplacing them. I found this, and there were 4 of us, right? So I was not the only one checking out books, but I found this very oppressive to only be able to get 8 books at a time. But we did go to to the library frequently. So that's good. So it was certainly every couple weeks. So I would read through these books, and they were really important to me. As an adult, people would say to me, think about what you want to do with your life. There are these, things about like, what's your dream job? How do you want to live your life? Think about what you did for fun as a kid. I'm like, I didn't do anything fun as a kid. I didn't have anywhere to go or to be. All I did was read all the time. And I'm like, okay, I still read all the time. Reading always seemed to be a side room, an anteroom, an existence out of reality and time. So I was like, that's where I go. That's my special secret world where I go that no one follows because people weren't following enough. Sometimes there would be someone who said, oh, I read that book too. But mostly it was a secret place that only I knew about. That's what it felt like. But I decided I get to be the one. I get to let this be a real thing. Okay, if this is what I want to enjoy as an adult, even though it seemed like it didn't exist as a child, I mean, it was this special secret world that only I knew about. It was, even as an adult, this special secret world of books that I was constantly consuming. I'm like, what if I were to let it be real? What if I were to let reality and the world of books merge? They do. They do merge. The literature of any culture has influenced what that culture is. When Benjamin Franklin wrote his autobiography, the world knew what America was supposed to be. They're like, oh, that's what Americans are. And when Charles Dickens wrote Great Expectations, England and the rest of the world who read that glorious book understood what was going on in England at that time. There is this desire for upward mobility, and things were shifting everywhere, but these books tell us who we are. That is worth paying attention to. So I'm taking the time to talk about it, to come out of the closet and say, this is what these books are. I'm reading them again and telling you all what this is about. Taking the time to say, yeah, this is Uncle Tom's Cabin. Yes, this is Scarlet's Letter. The Scarlet Letter. And yes, this is Walden. This is who we are. This is who we tell ourselves we are. Another glorious thing, too, is we can set our sights on who we want to be. I am not trapped in that anteroom of fiction and beautiful words. Those words created the culture of who I am. I'm getting a little teary now. That anteroom is where I made myself. And it's where we all can make ourselves too. If I don't know how to shift my life, I can go read a book about somebody that did. Or I can read a book about about stories of how that could turn out. And some of those stories are ancient texts. Some of those stories are thousands of years old. And some of those stories are set in the future that hasn't happened yet. Really? I get to go live there? Yes, I do. And there are people out there that are in that special secret room, cooking up the alchemy of our future, our culture, and all the things that we want to, could be, and don't want to be. We can see stories of things we don't want to be too, like, oh, there lies destruction. When I see that, I'm going to go the other way. And isn't it better to have that in a secret room rather than have to live through it and go, wow, I wish I hadn't done that? These books affect everyone. Even if you yourself didn't read it, the idea is in the world now. The idea is in the world. America was founded by a bunch of book readers. And let's be real, all the people that are leading every other culture in the world, book readers. So I'm taking the time to talk about it. I'm coming out of the closet. I ask you, join me in this secret room. The gates are down. I've got a library card, and I'll help you find one too. And also, I can help you know what things you should be reading. This is what this channel is about. This is what my videos are about. This is what I am about, and I'm sharing it with you. I'd love to hear what you think. Let's keep the conversation going.